What a big episode it is for Project Fast Fish, because today we take on something huge. That's right, we go ahead and remove and replace the entire wheel well on both sides, the driver's side and the passenger side, and I get to show you how I do it. And if I can do it, you can do it. It all happens right now here on Project Fast Fish on Mike's Motorworks. This is going to be a unique episode in 4 different parts. Part number 1, I'm going to show you what to expect and what to look for underneath and inside and around the wheel well itself. Then 2, I'm going to show you how I removed the wheel well, right? 3, I got a little patch panel I got to make. I'm going to show you how I did that for the rocker, or for the backside rocker, and then we get to reinstall the actual wheel wells for part 4. So on that note, let's show you what it looks like after the wheel well is removed so you know what to look for when tackling your project. So before tackling this project, I did a lot of different research out there. And I say research, I'm not talking about looking into scholarly articles or anything. I'm talking about just going through, looking at YouTube, get some how-to tips, get some information from the pros, and looking to see how they did it, and looking at on the things that are out and about for us to consume as consumers of information, right? And a lot of the information that I found, spoke and wrote and was produced for people maybe taking a portion of their wheel well and replacing that, or maybe patching a portion of their wheel panel out, or maybe either doing maybe the outer wheelhouse but not doing the inner wheelhouse. Not many showed what it took to do the whole wheelhouse, right? And so this is going to be kind of unique because you get to see how I did it. So first thing you're going to see or need to know then is what to expect when you yank these things out for the first time. First thing you got to do, and this really depends on the project that you're doing, and you have to decide this. For my e-body, I had to make sure that I was properly braced on the inside. Now, I did simple bracing. This braces up the package tray itself, right? So that keeps everything square, in addition with the support structure attached to the rear under seat pan here. So between these braces here and that brace there, we are supported fairly well in the back, right? Because this wheelhouse essentially is kind of like a secondary, or if you would use the word tertiary, support structure for the roof and the part of this car, right? And you can see that in play here. So let me take you from the trunk area and work forward. All right. First thing you got to be concerned with is this sail panel, and essentially what is the sail panel support or trunk deck support here. On an e-body, this is where the torsion bar goes for the hinges, right? And it also serves to hold up the sail panel of the vehicle to ensure that the back side of the structure is in place there, right? It keeps everything taken care of. Now, as you can see, there's a couple of spot welds that are in this area, and these were really easy to get to with a 3/8 bit from the inside of the trunk there. You can see there's no floor, right? Just 3 on the bottom and 2 on the sides. I kind of missed that one there, but that's par for the course, right? Now, another portion is this portion right here, which holds up the, effectively the roof support, right? Which is also holding up the package tray, right? This is that section right here. Now, getting to this section was a little bit tricky, and I'll show you why in just a second. And of course, over here, this is actually the lip of the wheelhouse, right? Now, to get to this section, it was really unique because I actually had to come and attack it from underneath the vehicle, right? Which was kind of deceiving because you could see here where I kind of nicked with the drill bit here and here, but I was still able to pull the panel itself off with the air hammer, all right? So that's there, and this is again on the inner wheelhouse. There's also a structure in here, or over here. This was easy to get to with the 3/8 bit from the inside. So this is the inside of the vehicle, right? So we had to kneel on the package tray, the rear seat, under seat pan, and then kind of was able to drill these out here. Now, this is the spine area of the wheelhouse. In other words, where the inner wheelhouse meets the outer wheelhouse. And removing that was as simple as taking all the spot welds and hitting them with the drill, okay? Now, obviously, all right, I fell a little short a little bit because some of these spot welds weren't exact, right? So those have to be put back into place. But you can kind of see how it works here, right? Effectively, you just drill those out, and then once the outer wheelhouse is completely sawed off near the spine, you can get those with the air hammer from up here, right? Same thing with the structure here. This was all exterior. Now, I'm not worried about this guy because it's going to be replaced. I have a new one of those. Kind of mangled that up in the back there a little bit. You know, that's par for the course. And of course, the spine worked itself down this way, all right? So those are the areas you need to be aware of. Again, where the spine goes, where the package tray support goes, again, the package tray support over here, and of course, the trunk brace. And you can see that everything is still kind of sturdy and rigid as I'm pushing on there, all right? So those are the things to look for, at least as far as the E-body is concerned. So let's take a look at this with the wheel well on so you can get a better understanding of what we're talking about here. All right, here is that trunk support bracket. Right? Again, this is holding the sail panel up here. This is the one with the 2 holes on this side, the 3 on the other side, and such, right? Now you can see where access to this one over here, this the package tray brace here is a little bit more difficult to get to, right? Because of the weird angle it's at. So I have to attack this from underneath the wheel well itself. So you can kind of see up underneath here, there's still a little bit of rubber up there. And so I'm gonna go ahead and scrape that rubber off and kind of do some descaling to kind of just quickly see where those spot welds are. And once I can identify where those spot welds are, I can drill through those, right? Now here's that spine we're talking about. Now we're not worried about separating it here because we're removing the whole wheel well. So I ain't worried about this, right? And then in here, I'll have to kind of unscale or descale it with the wire brush to see where my spot welds are. This is the spine area I was telling you about, right? This is that bracket that we're gonna not keep and will be replaced, right? So I got those spot welds to drill out here, and I'll use the air chisel to get rid of that, right? And then here's the spine in here. And then you can kind of see slightly like where some of the spot welds and such are, like there's one there, and some over here, etc. Right? About every 2 inches I can expect a spot weld, and those will be taken out. Now, when it comes time to actually pull the wheel well out, whacking it with a hammer isn't going to work, all right? Because there are some times that a spot weld itself might still have a piece being held on, etc. Right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the cutoff wheel and cut as close as I can to this seam right here. I'm going to get very, very close. That way I can run the air chisel into that spot from underneath the metal itself, right? And I'm going to do that over here as well. And of course, I am not going to forget about the spot welds that need to be drilled out back here. And I have to remove some of the seam sealer that's back here because some of that seam sealer really keeps that stuff held on as well, right? So let's go ahead and get this recorded in time lapse. I am working in the afternoons on this, so it's going to be over a couple of days for me, but I'm going to try to make it look like it's over a single time period in the time lapse. So let's get started and let's get this wheelhouse off. So there we have it, folks. We are done there. And of course, doing it the second time, it was much easier. Now, I still have some cleanup to do around here, and I got to get these straightened back out and what have you. In fact, now that I have that portion off, it's a good time to take care of the rear little section here of the rocker panel. Now, this is the exterior rocker panel. And what I'm going to do basically is go ahead and take care of everything from around here to around here and take care of a little bit of this portion right here. So let me show you how I did that. In fact, I did that on the other side. My lighting sources are very limited here in the garage in the evening time and at dusk. But you can basically see it's not perfect, okay? There's a nice little gap there. And you know what? I'm not worried about that. I'm not even going to worry about putting filler on that. I'm just going to paint that up with some epoxy primer and paint this whole area up, and boom, there we go. Because the quarter skin goes over all of that. The whole entire quarter panel starts from where the lead seam is right over here and then goes back to the well and so on and so forth. So this entire area will be hidden, right? And it was a good time to do that because you could see where the front of that outer wheelhouse matches up right here. By the way, with the wheel wells out, it's also a good time to take care of the rest of the under seat pan, which I had started there. And boom, there we go. All right. So let me show you how I made this happen, and then we will get to reinstalling the inner and outer wheelhouse. So what I did here was cut and measure the basic outline of what it looks like over there underneath that piece and put it here in flat cardstock, right? Or flat poster board, if you will. Just went to the dollar store and just ordered a whole bunch of poster board, or got a whole bunch of poster board, and boom, there we go, right? And then I used the flat measurements to kind of measure this thing out, and then I was able to kind of make the bends and folds where I needed to, and then kind of test fit to see everything went back into place. And then I took a piece of flat metal and then used the sheet metal brake to bend it thusly. And so now all I got to do is just do some basic trimming here and there, get that onto place, and do some descaling in the area of that wheel well, and we should be good. So that's what we're going to pick up next, is going ahead and putting in the inner and outer wheelhouse. And I'll do a quick disclaimer right now. The way I'm going to do it, I learned from Carthage Classic Cars, so a big shout out to them. By the way, make sure you check out their videos. They're doing some great stuff with their own e-bodies, and they got a lot of good advice if you're tackling something like I'm tackling here, right? And these guys are pros. You're not learning from some home hobbyist like I am who's doing it the first time. You guys will be actually learning from the pros to see how they do it. So let's go ahead and get rolling through the magic of YouTube. Let's get to the next day. It is definitely a gloomy Saturday here in northern Florida, and it's a little bit chilly. Of course, that's what you get in the winter time here, right? Things aren't always perfect or what have you, and I'm expecting more rain later on today, so I only have a couple more hours before the floods come. But with that in mind, all righty, we are on the next day, and as promised, we're going to go ahead and test fit our our wheelhouses in. So we're working with the inner and the outer wheelhouse. We just saw how the process goes for removing the panels, and then of course we are now getting into the point where we're going to test fit our panel into place. Then we can go ahead and install it. Now, quick disclaimer here, all right? Looking at a lot of the forums the other night and looking at a couple other different things, there were some concerns out there about how the outer wheelhouses fit. All right, now understand, on the E-bodies, all right, the inner wheelhouses between the Challenger and the Barracuda are the same, but there are differences in the outer wheelhouses, right? And unfortunately, AMD picked up a lot of flack for making the panels incorrectly and all that good stuff, right? No, all right? So here's the deal, okay? I looked at different sources, and there's two ways and two thoughts and two schools on how to do this. Thought number one, okay? Go ahead and install the inner panel, the inner wheelhouse. So you hear that ring? Go ahead and install the inner wheelhouse, get it set as perfect as possible, get the quarter panel, right? And then set the quarter panel, the trunk extensions in the trunk and all that good stuff, and then do the final set on the outer wheelhouse. Cool, Great. And you know what? There's a lot of validity behind that because, you know, sometimes the panels aren't going to fit just right. It is the aftermarket, right? Things need to be massaged in and what have you, right? Then I ran across a video from Carthage Classic Cars. And I want to give them full credit because this is how I'm going to do it. Alrighty? I am going to do it the first way I said, where you test fit them both, right? Test fit the inner panel, test fit the outer panel. When you're satisfied with where everything lines up, okay, then go ahead and mate the two together and then do your final install. That's how I'm going to do it, all right? And that should give me plenty of leeway if everything is measured out right to work with the quarter panels once I get them. Understand, I don't have the quarter panels yet, but also understand I have roof structure that I have to look at as well, right? And if I don't get this outer wheelhouse on, it's going to be hard for me to line up some of those pillars and some of those key components for the roof structure itself, right? That cage structure. So I'm going to go ahead and get it done. All right, so one quick note. Let me show you what we're talking about as far as they will fit, all right? I have the old panel. Let's turn this around. I have the old inner wheelhouse that had been cut out in the new panel here, right? There is nothing wrong with that fitment. Yeah, I get it. Okay, it's not perfect because, hello, the old piece is old, right? And what have you. But you could see they line up here on the inside rather well, okay? I'm not going to go to the key points here because that's not the point. I just did this for demonstrative or demonstrative purposes, right? But you can see here, even the holes themselves will line up roughly where you need them to line up, okay? It's going to work. Now, are our applications going to work? No, not really. You might have some variances. See, like that guy right there. In fact, I've already done this process, and look, things aren't going to line up, and it's okay. The idea is that they fit in there and are set in key areas where they need to be set. Example, right? We wanted to make sure that this area, and this is where the trunk extension goes, right? That these guys here are parallel with each other, right? And that over here, everything mates up as needed. I already visualized that, I already took care of that. Additionally, inside here, it's not going to be perfect. Oop, let me turn the light on so you can see that. There you go. Inside here, it's not going to be perfect, but it's going to look good. There is a little bit of gap right there. Okay, so there's like maybe a 1/4 inch difference between the two here, right? But that's fine. But honestly, going over to the car here, where everything lined up, it was good. It lined up against this right here. This is that key component I was telling you about, right? Everything lined up down here where it was needed. Everything lined up over here it was needed. There was a parallel line between the end of the inner wheelhouse and this frame structure. It was fine. And I was only really about a 1/4 inch off of this. So was the factory, okay? So we are good and aligned. This all fit back into place or what have you. So we're doing this the right way. So let's go ahead and get things set and let's get rolling. One quick note while the background footage is running. If you are someone who thinks, oh, I'm just going to take the inner wheelhouse, the outer wheelhouse, mate them together and make them work fine, it'll be perfect, it'll work marvelously. Let me show you. All right, just to prove that point, right? Went ahead and ran a 7/8 bolt into there for that hole. That is a 7/8 hole, right? And ran into the alignment hole or the alignment pin over here as well, right? But if we look at the back, let me get this on the camera angle. I'm not tall, so let's see here. There it is. You can kind of see that it doesn't quite, let me point it out with my finger there. There it is, all right? You can kind of see that it doesn't quite line up. Additionally, in here, all right, you can kind of see it kind of waves through. You're a 1/4 inch off here, right? 1/4 inch off up there, and then a 1/4 inch off back over here. So everything doesn't align just right. But when you get it into the car, okay, and start massaging it into place, and by massaging, I'm talking using a little nudger to help out with that, all right? And please don't use big old, ball peen hammers. get a dead blow or a rubber mallet, please? All right. You can see how everything kind of will get into place and fit for you. At which point you could use some fasteners, get that thing set, come back and put it all back together as I showed you with the other one we'd already done. All right, so let's keep on rolling. Wow, this pan is fitting a whole lot better than the other side did. All right, so here's a couple things I'm looking for, right? One, I want to make sure that I'm roughly parallel with this frame here because that's how it came from the factory, right? And it is almost exactly parallel. Two, you can see where I'm kind of clamped up in here. This is just for test fitting. I'll do some more additional clamps in the future, but this goes right up against that underseat pan up underneath there, right? Then over here, I'm looking for, how is it fitting here? Okay, is it fitting flush up against that panel right there? Are they fitting up with roughly where the holes were when the factory put this in? Of course, the factory kind of offset and kind of staggered these spot welds, etc., right? And this is roughly in line with that. Additionally, in the front, you can kind of see here that my gaps are really, really awesome, all right? Yeah, there's a gap there. Okay, that's fine. That's going to happen, all right? And yeah, that's where a lot of that seam sealer actually filled up, right? But this panel fits right in there. There was nothing that needed to be cut out because looky here, all right? I already kind of pulled that panel aside here. This inner, this right here is just the edge, this right here is just the edge of that inner rocker panel, and it was already pulled out from some hammering and it fit right in there. I go over here, look at the alignment hole, and boom, it is matching up almost precisely, including that back hole right back there. Everything is clamped into place. Additionally, we look back here to see how things are going, right? And this is roughly right here where it mates up against the trunk panel. Right, well within tolerance. There's about an inch difference between, or there should be an inch difference between where this panel ends and where the trunk itself will go, right? So we are definitely good there. And then these panels back here all line up as they need to. Just need to hammer them down and what have you. So I am confident that we are in space and in set on this particular panel right now. I'm gonna go ahead and mark it. All right, so we can get the spots I need back here for when it comes time to do my plug welds and such, right? And then we're gonna get the other panel on to test fit, and then hopefully we'll be able to put them together. Now, to showcase where things kind of stand with this, we are still a little off here at the top. And full disclaimer, I have since taken this panel off, put the two pieces together, and loosely put it back in there. And I say loosely, I wasn't as thorough as when my brother and I were out here doing it. We still have plenty of room we can move up and down with here. And I had this within 1/4 of an inch as opposed to the near 1/2 inch it's right now. But again, it'll line up. I'm just doing this for video's sake, all right? But down here, you can kind of see that I do have a little piece down here I need to trim off, okay? But everything is pretty much lining up as it needs to be, all right? Just quick whack and that comes into place, right? I'm also looking down here, and I need some trimming, or I need to do some trimming down in this spot, right down in this area, which is fine, just a little bit of grinding and what have you, and some welding to kind of make this kind of flush there. Again, that's where the panel comes across into the pan right here, so I think I'll be fine, right? Our alignment holes pretty much line up. Right on this side, we are good. Again, we're about a 1/4 inch from where we need to be at right now. We'd already had it set. This hole was right in the middle before. So again, that's proof that we did have this lined up previously. And the other thing we're looking for is right in this area right here, okay? This area, again, was within a 1/4 inch where it needs to be at. Same in the back here. And this side is a little bit low. Of course, we can get that higher up as needed. And of course, we put in a sheet metal screw to kind of use as a guide, and boom, there we are. Now, one of the things that we used to kind of align and look at things was how are we within this ridge right here, which is the kind of the downslope off the well. It matches with the other side. How far is that from the flat plane here, right? And as you can see, we are well within a 1/4 inch, right? So we are in a good spot there. So once I get the trunk in and those trunk extension panels, everything should be fine and lined up. Down here, you can see that everything is ready to go for spot welding up to here. Now, I haven't put that trunk deck in place yet. In fact, I'm probably going to wait to put these in until I get that trunk deck in, or at least I'll get them halfway. And then there's an additional cut I need to make down here. I need to get rid of that line right there, which is where this brace comes out over to here, right? So yeah, we're in a really good spot. And I got a couple more things I got to pre-weld. I've got to get holes into this side right here, inside that panel there, so I can go ahead and spot weld it or plug weld it against that panel over there. Alrighty, and that should pretty much wrap things up over here. I'm not going to show me welding in the panel because, hello, we know it's going to fit, all right? I just proved that. And even though it wasn't perfectly set in there, we did have it perfectly as it's going to be when, you know, John and I put the panel back in to make the final welds, right? And yeah, I'll be ready to go ahead and start tackling the cleaning process. Now, I have some things to clean up inside the frame rails and inside the car itself. Example, all this mess under here needs to be cleaned up, right? All this mess under here needs to be cleaned up. And of course, we got to remove these panels here, and then we got to bring our attention back to here in preparation to remove this horrid tail light panel and such. In fact, there are a few pieces back here. All right, I have this ready to go on the new one. Alrighty, do not have this, and then there's 2 pieces, these little extension pieces that I do have, right? But I will at least be able to get the trunk floor in when all is said and done, and be at a good stopping point for my next series of orders. Of course, that's one of the natures of being a hobbyist is you can't really get all the panels right away because, you know, it's about availability and affordability. And right now, the panels that I need, I'm still about $4 grand current market price shy of. And after I get those panels taken care of and ordered and saved up for, we'll be able to go to the next steps, right? Until then, we'll be catching up a couple of little things here and there about where things are at. And I am going to show the installation of that trunk deck and that trunk panel. So you don't want to miss it. So catch us next time here on Mike's Motorworks and Project Fast Fish.